What if Girlfriends, the once iconic sitcom adored by millions, wasn't a fairy tale after all, but a velvet curtain hiding some of Hollywood's most heartbreaking tragedies? We laughed with them, cried with them, lived with them on screen. Yet few ever knew that once the cameras stopped rolling, the real lives of the cast were far harsher than any scripted storyline. From the peak of fame, some fell into the depths, forced to survive in a cold, lonely garage. This video won't just tell a story. It will expose secrets that have been buried for decades. Who lost everything? Who had to fight for their life? And what is the true price of fame? The truth we're about to uncover may shock you. Before we dive into these dark hidden corners, hit subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment below to support the channel as we continue investigating these mysterious cases. Let's begin. Born on the 29th of October 1972 in the heart of Hollywood, Los Angeles, Tracy seemed destined to shine. At 28, she stepped into Girlfriends and instantly became the soul of the entire series. Her role as Joan Clayton, a brilliant, ambitious attorney tangled in the chaos of love, became an icon of the modern woman, strong on the outside, yet tender and vulnerable within. But what most people don't know is that Joan's fragility was also a mirror reflecting Tracy's real life, only on a far more complicated and pressure-filled level. Imagine being born under a shadow so massive it covers the entire world. Tracy's mother is none other than the legendary Diana Ross. Growing up beneath the blinding spotlight of one of the greatest icons in music history, Tracy carried an invisible yet crushing weight, the pressure to excel, the pressure to be worthy of the name Ross. That towering legacy was both a launchpad and a gilded cage. Tracy has admitted that behind the triumphs of Blackish, Mixedish and the feature film The High Note were mornings when she woke up with her chest tightening from anxiety. It was the constant fear that everything she had worked so hard to build her reputation, her career, even her Pattern Beauty hair care brand, could collapse with just one wrong move. And what was the price of that brilliant career? Loneliness. While Joan Clayton on screen tirelessly searched for a husband, Tracy Ellis Ross in real life chose a different path. She chose to prioritize her career and her own identity. To this day, at 53, Tracy remains single. She has never married and has no children. In a world where a woman's worth is still often judged by marriage and motherhood, Tracy's choice is an act of courage, but also one filled with challenges. She once shared a remark that made many people stop and think, "I love freedom," but sometimes freedom also means loneliness. Behind that signature radiant smile, behind the fun Instagram videos, lie the traces of years spent battling extreme perfectionism and the quiet ache of insecurity. There were nights when she returned to her million-dollar mansion, and the silence surrounding her may have been her only companion. But Tracy refused to let that loneliness consume her. She turned it into strength. By joining the travel series Traveling Solo on Roku, she proved to the world that happiness doesn't need to come in pairs. With a net worth of $16 million and a rising business empire, Tracy says her greatest achievement isn't fame or money. It's that after more than half a century of life, she has finally learned how to love herself fully, deeply, and without regret. If Tracy's story is about the pressure of success, then Reginald C. Hayes, the man who played William Jerome Dent, carries a tragic ballad about Hollywood's cruelty. Reginald was born on the 15th of July, 1969 in Chicago. At 31, he breathed life into William Dent, turning him into the nation's boyfriend, funny loyal, and the steady anchor for the entire group of girlfriends. Audiences adored him. Critics praised him. He once stood at the very top where the flash of cameras never faded. But the rule of showbiz is simple. When the velvet curtain falls, the audience goes home, and you're left alone. After Girlfriends ended, Reginald's phone stopped ringing. The casting calls dried up. Promising projects fell apart one by one. The entertainment industry that once praised him suddenly turned its back and forgot him without hesitation. From a television star, Reginald spiraled into financial hardship. Imagine the pain of a man once known across America now packing up his belongings to move into his sister's garage. Those were long, cold nights in every sense of the word. Lying in that cramped space filled with the smell of gasoline and dust, Reginald replayed the glory days in his mind and wondered, what did I do wrong? How could fame be so fragile? The shame, the sense of failure, the hollow emptiness, all of it pushed him into depression. He turned to alcohol as a numbing escape, a temporary anesthetic to quiet the ache of reality. He chose isolation because he couldn't bear for anyone to see him in decline. But the tragedy didn't stop there. In 2019, just as Reginald was trying to reclaim his footing with small roles on Black Lightning and Abbott Elementary, fate struck him with a devastating blow: congestive heart failure. The illness hit him hard, dragging him to the brink between life and death. Lying on a stark white hospital bed surrounded by machines beeping steadily, Reginald was forced to confront the harshest truth of all: fame cannot save a life. Money. Something he had already lost couldn't buy back his health. And in that moment, standing so close to death, he realized he hadn't lost everything. He still had life. After leaving the hospital, Reginald shared that he no longer saw those difficult years as losses, but as lessons that taught him how to rebuild his life from the ashes. Today, at 56, Reginald lives a quiet, steady life fully devoted to protecting his health and preserving the second chance he was given. Although he has never married, and his assets now amount to roughly $1 million, a modest figure compared to the glory of his past, Reginald considers survival and rising again after hardship to be the greatest role of his life. And in the soft, quiet light of his peaceful days, he has finally found something fame never gave him: a sense of calm within his own soul. Next, we come to a living legend, Jennifer Lewis, who played the bold, unforgettable Veretta Childs. Jennifer was born in 1957, and when she joined Girlfriends at 43, she brought to life a Veretta who was daring, hilarious, and full of emotional depth. She has long been known as the mother of Black Hollywood, thanks to her extraordinary career. On screen, she consistently appears as a force of nature, powerful, commanding, and overflowing with energy. But few ever knew that this explosive energy was sometimes a symptom of a brutal psychological battle she had been hiding for many years. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder in the 1990s, Jennifer's life became a violently swinging pendulum between two extremes: intense mania and crushing depression. Behind the hilarious one-liners that made audiences roar with laughter were panic attacks so severe she could barely breathe while standing alone in a dressing room. Behind that sky-high confidence on the red carpet were nights when she curled up in bed feeling useless and wanting to give up everything. She once admitted that this illness had nearly broken her completely. There were moments when the powerful woman America thought they knew was the exact opposite of the fragile, vulnerable reality inside. She had to learn how to perform not only in front of the camera, but also to play the role of a normal person around others, just to hide the pain. Her marriage to Arnold Bird in 2012 brought late-in-life joy, but it also came with tremendous challenges. Her mental health struggles created real pressure on the relationship, leading to periods when they had to live apart so she could focus on healing. Yet within that imperfection, they found their bond. Not only did she fight for herself, but Jennifer also did something incredibly brave. She publicly shared her diagnosis. In her best-selling memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood, she stripped away every mask and became a powerful voice for mental health advocacy. Now at 68, life's challenges still haven't let her go. In 2022, she suffered a terrifying fall in Africa and underwent a grueling 9-hour surgery. But Jennifer is a warrior. She returned to work with scars on her body but steel in her spirit. Her $2 million net worth reflects her talent, yet it is her unbreakable resilience, her refusal to surrender to the darkness of mental illness that stands as her truest legacy. Golden Brooks, who brought to life the sharp-tongued yet warm-hearted secretary Maya Denise Wilkes, became the voice of the working class. Maya was beloved for her honesty, humor, and resilience. But Golden Brooks's life after Girlfriends ended turned into a painful script of being forgotten and of the quiet struggles of a single mother. Stepping away from the spotlight to embrace motherhood, Golden never imagined that this choice would send her career into a steep and relentless decline. Hollywood is a machine that never stops, and by the time she returned, her place was gone. The roles disappeared. The phone calls grew fewer and farther between. She found herself wondering, has my time passed? Has this industry quietly erased me? The silence in her career echoed the pain in her personal life. Her deep relationship with actor D.B. Woodside, the father of her daughter, came to an end in heartbreak. Then came the custody battle, the sleepless nights spent worrying about her daughter's future, and the financial pressure weighing heavily on the shoulders of a single mother. Golden had to seek therapy. She openly admitted that she needed help to face the anxiety and fear consuming her. She showed us that even the strongest women, the ones who always say, "I'm fine," can break sometimes. Her return in The Darkest Minds and Disney's Saturdays was slow, difficult, and filled with obstacles. Now at 55, with a modest net worth of $1 to $2 million, Golden may no longer shine as brightly as she did during her Maya Wilkes era, but she has become a quiet symbol of resilience. She teaches us that sometimes victory isn't about standing at the peak of glory. It's about refusing to break in the face of hardship. If you believe Golden deserves to be celebrated for her resilience, comment. 1. If you're still unsure, comment 0. Enjoy the video and don't forget to like, share, and hit that sub button to support the channel. Your feedback is the motivation that keeps us bringing you the most authentic stories from Hollywood, and make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Persia White. The free-spirited Lynn Ann Searcy was the gentle, artistic heart of Girlfriends. But it was that very artist's soul that left her wounded the most when she stepped into the hard, practical world of Hollywood. After the show ended, Persia poured all her passion and her savings into music, hoping it would become the sanctuary her spirit needed. She released an album that earned praise from critics, but commercially it was a failure. The industry's indifference pushed her into severe financial pressure and a deep crisis of confidence. She felt like she had become invisible. The very industry that once celebrated her now treated her like a stranger. The pressure to maintain the image of a vegan, eco-friendly, always positive artist while she was falling apart inside left her emotionally drained. The heartbreak of her 2009 breakup with musician Saul Williams was the final blow, the moment that pushed Persia into a long, overwhelming depression. She withdrew from public life, avoiding the eyes of the world. There were days when she felt completely lost, unsure of who she was without the role of Lynn. It took many years of therapy and meditation for Persia to slowly regain her balance. And fate finally smiled on her when she met actor Joseph Morgan, the star of The Vampire Diaries. His genuine love lifted her spirit, reminding her that a person's worth isn't defined by fame or by music charts. Today, at 53, Persia lives a quiet life, writing music and fighting for animal rights. She no longer chases the spotlight. She chases inner peace. It is a gentle, fitting ending for an artist's soul that was once deeply wounded. Jill. Marie Jones's story. The woman behind Tony Childs carries a very different tone, one of injustice and Hollywood's quiet punishment. Tony Childs was one of the show's most iconic characters. But when Jill chose to leave after the 6th season to seek new opportunities, she had no idea how harsh the consequences would be. She expected Hollywood to welcome her talent with open arms. Instead, the door slammed shut right in her face. Malicious rumors began to spread. Within the industry, people whispered that she was difficult, ungrateful, demanding. For a black actress at that time, those labels were a career death sentence. Jill never confirmed any of these accusations, but they hung over her like a ghost, blocking her path to bigger roles. She shared that the years of silence from her agent felt like a boulder pressing down on her chest. In the lonely nights inside her Los Angeles home, she tortured herself with the question, "Did I make the biggest mistake of my life by leaving girlfriends?" The struggles in her career spilled over into her personal life. Tabloid scrutiny of her brief relationships pushed Jill into relentless insomnia and recurring panic attacks. She became terrified every time she saw her name in the news. It took years and therapy for Jill to rebuild her confidence. Now at 50, she has found peace by taking part in independent projects and smaller television roles. She has come to realize that success isn't about reclaiming the fame she once lost, it's about learning to let go of the wounds Hollywood inflicted on her. Although her path back isn't as dazzling as before, for Jill, every quiet, peaceful day is a silent victory, all her own. Next, let's talk about the man who brought balance to Girlfriend's Khalil Kain, the actor behind Darnell Leroy Wilkes. On screen, Darnell was the model of a steady husband, a devoted father, and the solid anchor that kept his family from being swept away by life's storms. Audiences loved Khalil for the honesty and warmth he carried in every look, every gesture. But the irony is heartbreaking once he stepped away from the set life, stripped away the very piece he portrayed so beautifully. When the lights of Girlfriends went out, Khalil was forced to confront one of America's darkest, most haunting realities, gun violence. The tragedy came without warning. Khalil lost a close, beloved family member in a shooting, a devastating event that tore his heart apart. There are no words that can truly capture the pain of losing someone so suddenly and so brutally. The shock was so overwhelming that it shattered the strength of a man once seen as unbreakable. For a long time, Khalil disappeared from Hollywood. It wasn't a break, it was an escape. He could no longer stand in front of a camera, could no longer smile or crack jokes to entertain the world when his own heart was bleeding day after day. He kept asking himself, how can I play a happy man when my entire world has just collapsed? Grief built an invisible wall around him, one that he couldn't climb, couldn't break, and couldn't outrun. Khalil became withdrawn, distant, even from the people he loved most, his wife and his children. The home that was once filled with laughter was now covered in the heavy silence of loss. He shrank into himself, wrestling alone in the dark with unanswerable questions about justice, life, and death. But in the moment when everything seemed hopeless art, the very thing he once wanted to walk away from became his only lifeline. Khalil turned to the theater stage not to chase glory, but to find a place where he could finally let it all out. The stage became his refuge, the one place where he could scream, cry, and release all the rage and despair he had been carrying for so long through the characters he played. The play, Lambs to Slaughter. 2022 was not just a piece of art. It was a haunting, visceral scream about violence and the instinct to survive. Every performance was a confrontation with his own pain, transforming emotional wounds into raw, powerful acting. Khalil once spoke candidly in an interview, saying that the emptiness left by the loss of a loved one will never be completely filled. That scar will stay with him forever. But through steady therapy and the unwavering embrace of his family, he has learned how to live with it. Now at 61, Khalil Kain is no longer the man chasing blockbuster roles or the glittering parties of Hollywood. He chose a quieter but far more meaningful life, teaching the younger generation, taking part in thoughtful, independent films, and using his own voice, his own story, to speak out against the violence tearing communities apart. He found peace, not because he forgot the past, but because he learned to cherish every breath of the present. Khalil Kain teaches us this. Even when a heart is shattered, the rhythm of life can still continue stronger, braver, and more resilient than ever before. Finally, the last piece of the girlfriend's mosaic brings us to Keisha Sharp, the brilliant actress who embodied Monica Charles Brooks. If Tony Childs was seductive chaos and Maya was the voice of the streets, then Monica was the embodiment of icy perfection, a sharp, stylish woman who kept everything firmly under control. In real life, Keisha Sharp also seemed to possess a life anyone would envy: ageless beauty, undeniable talent, and a rare, steady family life in a Hollywood landscape filled with fractures. But my friend's perfection is often the most carefully crafted mask, hiding the cracks within. Behind the radiant red carpet smile, Keisha was battling an enemy both invisible and merciless: silent burnout. After Girlfriends ended, instead of resting, Keisha threw herself into work like a moth to a flame. She refused to stop. She refused to breathe. She pushed forward, earning acclaim, including a prestigious award nomination for her performance in The People vs. O.J. Simpson. She shone in the feature film Marshall and became a lead in the action series Lethal Weapon. Her list of achievements kept growing, but her life energy was draining away. Imagine a schedule with no cracks to breathe through 16 to 18-hour shooting days, lonely overnight flights from one city to another, layers of heavy makeup that stayed on her skin from sunrise to midnight, and the crushing pressure to show up looking flawless every single time. The industry doesn't tolerate exhaustion, and it tolerates aging even less. Keisha was swept into that brutal machinery until she forgot what the word rest even meant. In a rare confession later on, Keisha admitted there were moments when she felt torn apart to her core. On one side was the image of a successful woman on screen admired by millions. On the other was a woman utterly drained, struggling just to stay balanced within the walls of her own bedroom. She became trapped in the endless cycle of trying to please everyone: directors, audiences, the media, everyone except herself. But thankfully, in the middle of that storm of fame, Keisha had an anchor that many of her colleagues never had: a marriage that has lasted more than 2 decades with Brad Sharp. Brad wasn't just a husband, he was a true partner, the one who saw the exhaustion behind her eyes when the cameras stopped rolling. He was the one who pulled her back before she collapsed, reminding her of a simple truth so often forgotten in Hollywood: peace matters more than fame, and health matters more than any award. That awakening saved her. Keisha began her transformation. She didn't walk away from Hollywood, she changed the way she existed within it. She started turning down projects that drained her and shifted toward taking control of her own career. She explored directing and producing roles that allowed her to control her time and tell stories the way she wanted to. More importantly, she became a powerful voice for health and wellness. She spoke openly about clean eating and about working out, not to stay in shape for a role, but to nourish her body from the inside out. At 52, Keisha Sharp isn't growing older. She seems to be aging in reverse, fueled by the peace she's found within herself. She chose family dinners over glamorous industry parties. She chose a good night's sleep over sensational headlines. Keisha Sharp's story is the clearest, most powerful reminder that a truly successful woman is not the one who works herself to death, but the one who knows when to pause, to breathe, and to value herself long before she expects the world to value her. The spotlight of girlfriends may have faded, but their stories of collapse and rebirth remain some of the most powerful lessons about the true cost of fame. They prove that even after losing everything, a person can rise again from the ashes. Whose tragedy moves you the most, and whose resilience earns your deepest respect. Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next hidden secrets of Hollywood. See you in the next one.